looking at is our topic today in our special creative arts presentation, Understanding Dreams. It's the second part of a two-part series. It's following up on the last part. So we've got lots to learn about again this morning. It's going to be really great. If I said how many people dreamed last night, I bet most of you would put your hands up. I know I would. Maybe I don't really want to remember all my dreams, but this morning we're going to learn something that will help us understand those dreams. We're going to be doing this using creative arts, dance, drama, music, song, spoken word. Another thing that we use is an opportunity for people themselves to get involved. And this is going to be your opportunity. So if you'd like to stand up and welcome on the music team.
It's at 6:30 next week. And next performance is by the dance group, the Hosanna.
Consider these words. As a dream comes when there are many cares, so the speech of a fool when there are many words.
The noise you heard, it was a noise of pain. I dreamt that I was falling and there were things that were swiping at me, ripping into me. It tore my clothes. It ripped into my flesh, into my chest, my back, my arms, my face. And then bang! I hit the ground and everything was quiet. I make a noise. Somebody pushes me and says, "Be quiet." I turn around and see who it is. Someone else hits me. Be quiet. It feels like there's things all around me. Another hit. Be quiet. Please stop it right now. Shut up. It just went on and on and on. I was so scared. I just didn't know what to do.
thing about it is that even when we take notice of them, we don't work hard enough to actually be able to make anything constructive out of them, or even to understand them in a way that would be helpful to us. And so this morning, in the second part of the series we're going to come to this whole business of how to interpret dreams. And I want to start with this quote we finished with last week again, just to remind us the kind of attitude we show toward the dream or vision is the kind of response we will receive from it. So the attitude you show, the attitude you and I show toward the dream, will actually dictate what will actually come out of this whole thing. And I'm just wondering this morning how much you've thought about your dreams, how much you've pondered them. Because all of us are different in the way that we respond to them. I'll just turn this thing around here so that it'll look at me instead of away from me. In terms of interpreting dreams this morning, I wonder, what are the kinds of things you imagine? There was a young salesman who went and applied for a job, and he had a dream to be the most successful person. He used to dream it regularly, but he never knew how he could ever do it, because the only jobs he could ever get were just small jobs. And he went and he applied one day to actually go for a sales job. And the manager asked him, "Have you got any sales experience?" And the young guy replies, "Yeah, well, I did back home in Texas, I did, but I dream about it lots." The manager goes, "Oh no, not another dreamer." He's sort of not feeling too comfortable about it. Well, he decided, well, I can take him on a trial basis. So he said to the young fellow, "Look, I'll take you on a trial basis." And he said, just after a time, maybe you'll start to learn something, and we'll see how you go. But is that okay? And the young fellow said, "Yeah, anything. I'll take any kind of job at all." Well, when the evening came and the store was locked up, the manager came to this young man and he says, "How many sales did you make?" "I made one, sir." The manager's heart sank. "Just one." He said, "Our sales people normally average 20 or 30 sales a day. What have you been doing all day?" "Well, just selling one thing. Sort of made one sale, one person." He said, "Yeah, you took a whole day to make one sale. I mean, people walk in the door. You could sell them anything." "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, how much did you make?" The young fellow looks at him and says, $101,237.64. The manager's mouth falls open. How did you do that? Most of our salespeople sell 20 or 30 items a day, and they make $60, $300, maybe $500, but that's unbelievable." He says, "I've never seen a thing like that." He said, "What did you do? What the heck did you sell?" The young boy turned around and he says, "Well, first I sold him a fish hook." "Oh," says the manager. "Then I sold him a fishing rod. Then I asked him where he was going fishing, and he said, down to the coast. So I told him that he was going to need a boat. He went down to the boat department, and I sold him that twin-engine Chris craft. Then he said he didn't think his Honda Civic would pull it. So I took him over to the automotive department and sold him the 4x4 Expedition." The boss said, "A guy came in here to buy a fish hook, and you sold him a boat and a truck." And the kid says, "No. He came in and said his mother-in-law was coming to visit. And I said, well, your weekend's shot. You might as well go fishing." Dreams fulfilled may not come about the way we might expect. And some of us, we talked about last week, can I have a dream? Yeah. Can I have ambitions to see things come true? Yes. In fact, there's a simple word for that. It's a 5-letter word. Faith. And you see there's a connection between faith and dreaming, and a connection between dreaming and understanding what is actually happening in this world. Those things intrinsically connected to each other. So let's have a look at some facts about their importance, because I think it's important that we do see it clearly. You see, seemingly identical dreams aren't limited to one meaning. In fact, they can deal with a variety of things. As the first thing, when we're having a dream that's unexpected, seemingly identical dreams aren't limited to one meaning. In fact, they can deal with a variety of things. Do you remember, for those of you who were here last week, I had a box. This box. And somebody came up here on stage and opened it up for me. And can anybody tell me what was inside it? A chocolate bar. And see, I've got this box again. Exactly the same box. So it would appear. And I'm going to actually, this time, open it myself. You see, I can see inside it, just like the other one. There's holes there for us to see into it. But there's something different about this. For a start, it rattles. The other one didn't. When we shook it, it just had a little sort of plasticky sound. So let's have a look to see what's inside my box. Well, we open up the box, and first thing I discover is that whoever punched the thing out didn't chuck the rubbish away, and so it's still in the box. And then I go further into the box, and out comes something quite different. No chocolate bar this week. The box looked identical. Can I tell you something? If I showed you this box and the other box I showed you last week, you would not be able to tell me whether those two boxes were different or the same. In actual fact, you'll have to take my word for it. This is an entirely different box to the first one. Now, it looks the same. It has the same patterns on it. It has the same holes punched in it. It's got the same creases in it. It's been folded the same. It's been put together the same. In fact, it even carried originally the same article, in my understanding. And the person that came and could have looked at it and thought, great, I'm going to get a 3.5-inch disc case, box, hold my discs. Instead, they got chocolate, and they enjoyed it. I don't think most of you would be interested in one of these boxes, would you? But some would be. You see, what it serves to illustrate is that even though the dream looked the same, in fact, it had quite a different content, quite a different, if you like, message. So that's the first thing I think we need to be aware of when interpreting dreams. The second thing I'd like us to look at, we can have exactly the same image, and this is from a different perspective to this one I've just covered. And each of us can be having a dream at different times in our lives. And for one person, it can be that if we dream about being in this lovely farm in the middle of America, by looks of the shape of the barn, some of us, it could be a place of loneliness. Could be a child who's been raised on a farm or had to live there for a short time, and it was a real sense of loneliness for them. So the association for that person is one of loneliness. For another person, it could be a place of security. It could be a place where their experience on the farm was so marvellous that they never ever want to let it go. And they dream about it constantly. Whenever they're feeling a little insecure, they have a dream about it. And then the last one I've got up here could be a dream of future opportunity. Somebody who always is dreaming, one day I will have, one day I will experience, one day this will happen for me. Just one day. For each of us, it's different. For every one of us, it's different. So looking at interpreting dreams, the first thing in terms of facts about it, their importance, is not every dream is from God. Not every dream is from God. For some people, your dreams sometimes they're just your dreams. They're very fleshy type things. They're just your dreams. Sometimes they can be inspired by something quite evil. On odd occasion, that can be the case. But at the same time, we will often rule out dreams and say, well, this is not from God. And I want to suggest this morning that in actual fact, God's a lot more involved than we like to think about dreams. In fact, there's one very solid way in which he often communicates with us, but we often don't hear. You know what it's like when you're a parent. You know what it's like when you're not a parent. Can you come and do the dishes? Darling, I asked you, can you come and do the dishes? 3 minutes later, I told you to come and do the dishes. What's happening here? The child is ignoring what the parent is asking. And I want to suggest that's exactly what we do. We are sometimes like children when it comes to dreams. We don't want to hear, or we ignore it. Maybe it's going to be too intimidating. Maybe we're scared we won't understand. Or maybe we just think dreams have no meaning. Well, they do. They have very profound meaning. But not every dream is from God. But I want to suggest there's a lot more dreams are from God than you've probably ever perceived or understood. The next one. God is always present with us. Most of us aren't aware of that. That right now, in this room, God is present. I also want to say that right now, in this room, there's a potential for evil to be present as well. Just as much as you and I are present. We'd like to think when we're sitting in a room that everybody we're going to be sitting with or travelling with or living with is all safe and nice, but we don't know. We don't really know. And it's the same in terms of the spiritual. So God is always present with us. It's a fact about the importance of interpreting dreams. Next one, God gives directions to those who are open to Him. He gives directions to those who are open to Him. Primarily, He also gives directions to those who are not open to Him. But of course, if we're not open, we don't always hear. The next one, we can directly confront and experience the spiritual world. We can directly confront and experience the spiritual world. I want to suggest for every one of us here that there are things that we have dreamed if we had only pursued them. What a change it could have made in our lives. I've often had people say to me, I really wanted to do something really good with my life. I wanted to be successful and effective. And, if I ask them, I don't always think to ask them, but if I happen to ask them, say, what have you dreamed about? And we start talking, and they start talking about their dreams, and I say, what have you done about that? Well, it'll just happen. Isn't it like that? No, it's not. It's not like that at all. We can choose to directly confront and experience the spiritual world. We can participate in the whole thing, and that's our connection, one of our connections in any case, through our dreams. The next one. God is much more anxious to communicate with us than we are to listen. He's much more anxious to communicate with us than we are to listen. The main reason is because we know in front of a holy God that we're not perfect. We're pretty sinful. And if we think God's going to speak, I know what my family are like. Not my children, but my parents and that, If God should speak to me, the roof will fall in. It's a belief. It's actually a belief. They had this belief that if they came to church, the roof would fall in. Same belief. I always tell people we've built this really strong steel catwalk so that if you come to church, the roof won't fall in on you. You don't have to experience your worst nightmares. They're dreams that people have, and they've spoken and put them into words. So we come to help to interpreting dreams. The first point in terms of helping us interpreting dreams is I think it's really important to write your dreams down. I'd love to ask for a survey here, but I don't want to intimidate anybody. How many people had a dream, haven't written it down, and then afterwards thought, what did I actually dream in the morning? If you don't write them down, you'll often lose them, because that's the nature of who we are. We need to make some conscious effort to make sure that we're grappling with what dreams are all about. So my suggestion is keep a pen and paper near your bed, or be willing to get out of it and write them down. Now, I know most of you are not that willing to get out of bed because it's hard enough in the morning, so keep a pen and paper beside your bed. It's a great thing to do, and it's amazing what will happen. because you'll start to realize the significance of your dreams in a way you never did before. Because when you write things down, you write more detail than you do remember. I know I've had several times where people have had prophecies over me where they've had words about my future. And I'm hopeless at remembering those. But others in my presence have remembered those particular those particular prophecies. And when they remind me, I think, oh, why didn't I write it down straight away afterwards? I'm learning, I'm getting better. Because they start to come true. It's true. The next one. Mind you might not want all of them to come true, eh? All right. The next one is take them seriously. Dreams mustn't be taken lightly, even if they seem like the craziest things. When I was a child, I used to have this experience with all the conflict that was going on in our home. I used to have these dreams where I was constantly standing beside walls, or for some reason beside walls. I don't know why beside walls. There's probably some reasons, deeper meanings and all the rest of it. And I used to find myself in my dreams floating. And I'd float and I'd get bigger than everybody else. And I'd feel safe. Now, I didn't understand what those dreams used to mean when I was a child. But since I've grown up a little and I've started to try and pursue the understanding of dreams, one of the things I've discovered about them is that for me, that was actually a very important experience. What it was saying is that I was rising above the situation I was facing. And I was actually big enough. God was making me big enough to know that anything around me wasn't going to take control of my life. And perhaps the wall behind me was saying, you're safe, your back's safe, or something like that. But that was my experience. And I had that dream over and over and over and over in my life. It was very helpful. Brought peace sometimes for me in the midst of some serious conflict. The next one is pay attention to images. You know, when we're younger, we often pick up a whole bunch of images in our lives, things that we've experienced, life experiences of all sorts of different kinds. And in those life experiences, we will have things that stick in our mind. Now, some of those images will have significance to us. In fact, if we look at them, they actually can often be things that are from our past, and they're associations, which is the next point I'm going to cover. But images we see on television, for example, war. We have images of war that often come to us in our dreams, and if people are having images of a war, it's not talking about war per se, it's talking about who I am inside, often, not always, but it'll often be about who I am inside and in a conflicts I might be facing. It'll often have images of other people, like, for example, my brother can be in a dream. Now, my brother and I, this particular brother, didn't get along too well. In fact, after I became a Christian, he got very upset about me becoming a Christian, and he decided one day that he was going to have a go at me, so he ripped my brand new watch off. I'd paid, I think it was $98 for this watch. It was a lot of money in those days for an apprentice to be buying a watch of that value. It was a nice watch, a classy watch, had a calendar in it. It was very, very fancy watch. And he ripped it off, and he threw it on the ground, and he stomped it with his boot and smashed my watch. I remember what I did to my brother that day, and I regret it. I grabbed him by the throat, not round that way, with his shirt. I lifted him off the feet and stuck him up against the wall. I was just 2 or 3 weeks old as a Christian. I shoved him up against the fence, and I yelled out to my father, "Come and see what this prat of yours has done." Dad didn't appreciate that, and I was the one that got in trouble, not him. Never mind the watch. But ever after that occasion, one of the things that used to happen to me is that I used to have dreams where my brother would appear, and I used to think that it was my brother that was the baddie. In actual fact, I now understand dreams enough to know that what was actually happening, it was talking about an inner side of me that was an angry side that needed dealing with. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson. Once I learnt it, an interesting thing happened. I stopped having the dream with my brother in. Isn't it interesting? You see, those representations can be very real and very powerful for us. So, let's have a look. This other thing of associations that I mentioned a moment ago. When we were younger, for example, we might have been into an orange grove and picked heaps of oranges. And during the process, like happened with most of us with either strawberries or oranges or apples or something, you're allowed to eat them when you're picking them in some places. You usually pigged out and suffered afterwards. Well, I did. None of you did, of course, eh? You guys are silent this morning. I would suffer afterwards sometimes. And so when I grew older, anything associated with oranges in particular, it took me years to get to even eat an orange again. I hated the things afterwards. I now enjoy them again. But if I had pictures of oranges in my mind, it was an association thing. And what would actually often happen, it would be a warning to me that I was about to do something really dumb again. That was my association. So we have associations that happen to us in our minds because of life experiences often that we've had. Then images that represent something you have previously experienced is the way to see it. Okay, pay attention to repetitions. They keep coming. Pay attention. If you keep getting a repetition, like what happened with my brother over and over again, I didn't understand it. I wish I'd known. I wish I had been taught when I was younger how to look at dreams. Because if I had, I might have understood something about myself a lot earlier, and I might not have gone through some of the stupid pain I went through because I didn't grasp who I really was. And I needed to. All of us need to battle with those things. We need to deal with them. And repetitions are a clear clue to us that God is saying, I want you to hear this. In fact, if it comes often enough, you could probably reinterpret it as God saying, you're thick, listen. All right? I can't get it through to you. I'm going to keep repeating it until you get it. You know what it's like on an old record? Most of you young folk don't associate it with old records, so we'll say a CD that's got a faulty mechanism. It goes, yeah, baby, yeah, baby, yeah, baby, yeah, baby, yeah, baby, yeah, baby. You know? That's what happens. When we're in trouble, we'll hear, yeah, baby. Got to watch out. So repetitions are often something we need to really pay some serious attention to, maybe more than most of our other dreams, in a way. Not that I would want to quantify it in that way. We need to pay attention to all our dreams. Then we need to look at dreams as if they're a movie. Don't look at them and take one little thing out of it and say, this is the all-significant fact about my dream. It's just not true. When you have a dream, it's a whole experience. It's not just a one-off thing. Even if it is you falling continuously and continuously and continuously. You want to try and see the end of the movie if you can. I hate not seeing the end of movies. When I was a young boy, the Boy Scouts had this movie. My parents said we had to be home at 9 o'clock at night. And so we dutifully went home at 9 o'clock at night. The only trouble was it was about these two Boy Scouts, and the whole motto of the film was be prepared, typical Scout motto thing. And these two boys had been in a plane crash in the Amazon, and they kept getting tigers and lions and the local natives trying to use them as sacrifices and all these things happening. And we go home 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I never saw the end of it. And over and over and over. I tried to make an ending to that movie. It took me years to try and finish it off. In the end, I decided that they were going to be safe. And so I could finish my movie in my mind. Look, dreams are like that. Dreams are really like that. We need to be people who are going to pursue them, even if there's something scary in them. Now, if you're having awful dreams that are pure nightmares, that are terrible things, one of the things you can do, and I suggest this seriously, is in the middle of your sleep, to be able to call out to God and say, God, can you tell me what this is about? Or can you stop this thing if it's not coming from you? Because you're communicating at the spiritual level at that point. I sort of laughed when Henry Poltridge, my missionary friend from overseas, who dedicated quite a bit of his home furlough to my care. I was a very young Christian, his children knew the Bible back to front, and I felt so inadequate around Henry. But Henry said to me, when you're having these dreams and nightmares, one of the things you can do is pray in the middle of it. You can actually communicate in the middle of the dream. You don't just have to accept what's coming. You can actually address the things that are there. You can actually talk to God about them. I said, oh, Henry, you know. Henry was a stern man, and he said, Gary, don't you talk like that. You hear what I'm saying? Now, I didn't dare argue with Henry when he spoke like that, because he didn't usually speak like that, so I shut up and went home and had a nightmare or a dream within the next few days. Can't remember exactly when it was. And I found myself in the middle of the dream consciously choosing to pray. And it changed the whole dynamics of that particular dream. It changed what happened to me in the course of the dream. An intriguing experience. I recommend you try it. Listen to them as if a movie. But don't be fatalistic about them. Don't say, because it says I'm going to die, that's necessarily what's being said. Or it's not even necessarily literal. But if it says you're going to die, be watchful. It could mean that you're going to be spiritually dead. Could have quite different meaning to what you imagine. Just because it looks like it's physical. Or it looks like somebody, like your brother or your father or some friend has come and attacked you in the middle of the night. Don't look at them with suspicion after that. Look at what it means. What does that person represent in your life? What is it that it's all about? Listen to them as if like a movie. Learn to understand archetypal symbols. That's a big word, but let's make it really simple. Some years ago, Jung, who was a man who spent a lot of time dealing with psychology and studied man intensely, he had an experience that ties in with my first one, and I just want to pick this one up. Horses. If you have a horse appearing in your dreams, for some people, not everybody, for some people a horse represents their body. And Jung became aware of this because he had this woman come to him for counselling. And she told him about this awful dream that she had, and he had just been working hard on trying to understand dreams. And he did pioneer some really good work amongst our Western culture on it, although I think he since then there's been people who have taken it far further. But I think in his day he was quite radical and good. And he sat and he listened to this woman talk about this horse that was galloping along and fell over a cliff and died at the bottom of the cliff. And he sat there listening. What does this dream mean for this woman? He asked some questions of her about her life experiences. And in the end he was a little unsure what to do, but he said to her, I think you ought to go to the doctor and get a checkup. And so she did. And you know an amazing thing had happened? God had been speaking to her about the condition of her body, and she had cancer, and they were able to actually deal with it quick enough to actually save her life. An interesting story. And why did Jung come to that conclusion? Because in the woman's life experience, horses had particular significance, and a horse dying like that had been a trauma in her own life. And so it was sitting there, but she didn't understand it. So there it is. So sometimes archetypal types. They are very common things, these archetypal types. You'll find lots of people who dream about horses and have similar meanings or similar significance of various kinds. The next one, house or rooms. In other words, things in our lives. You know, if people walking through a house or looking into a room and this mess in the room or the things there, or it's really looking tidy and wonderful, it's talking about what our life's like, who we are. Then another different particular form and shape might be the automobile with no brakes or no steering. You know, the kind of dream you're having, you're coming down a hill, don't know whether you've ever had it, you slam the brakes on and they don't work. And you're careering down the hill faster and faster. Well, if you don't think that's for real, I was with some friends once in an A40 going down the Shenandoah Saddle, and there was no brakes because the silly wallies put it into what they used to call Māori overdrive, which isn't a very polite way of looking at it. They just took it out of gear and rolled down the hill. I can tell you what it's like when you're rolling down a hill in an old bomb like that. and you try and slam the brakes on, there are no brakes. You slam your foot as hard as you like, and it seems to might be slow you up, but how we got down to the bottom, I do not know to this day. And often we can have dreams that are just like that. And what it's saying is that my life's out of control. No steering, no brakes. Go to turn somewhere, it keeps going the direction you're already going. You can't go where you want to. Now, there are lots of archetypal types, and I just couldn't imagine them all. But there are some key ones that could perhaps give you some grasp of things that maybe you have had happening in your dreams. And maybe that will help you understand what's actually happening. You need to know also that evil is usually easily recognized in a dream, as often comes with no disguise, is unmasked, and appears as it really is. Now, usually, I want to say that because sometimes we don't recognize evil for what it is. Men in particular have a problem with something that was raised in the drama. The brother it was being suggested that he was having dreams about girls that weren't appropriate. I want to suggest, guys, really hear this clearly. Those dreams actually are talking not about sex in that blunt sense. They're actually talking about issues that you need to deal with. Now, I think it also talks about sex, and that's an issue in itself. But there are other things that I think guys need to grapple with on that. And women have changed in the last 30-odd years since I've been a Christian. Soap opera television stuff. The old soaps have changed women's thinking. And I believe that the seeds that have been sown in those archetypal types that they've generated through television have become a very serious problem to a lot of women. And fantasy is an issue that needs to be dealt with in terms of dreams. Fantasy that needs to be looked at not as just fantasy and the real things that are happening, but what is it actually saying to me about myself? What do I need to address? Evil can, however, be very vivid. People talk about giants and demons and all sorts of things. Very obvious, very clear stuff. So it's usually quite clear. I thought I'd put one more screen on there. I didn't. I've done something wrong. But what I want to finish with today is to get us to think a little bit. There was a woman once, she's a grandmother. And you know, older people dream dreams and younger people have visions according to the story that goes. Well, we all have both to some degree, but certainly younger men have opportunity to dream a lot more visions, and older people start losing the motivation to. They've achieved everything they want to achieve, they're enjoying life, or either that or they've failed and they don't want to dream too much anymore. We as people need to see it like this grandma, who could still remember the beautiful things that used to happen with her and her husband. Grandpa and her were sitting on porch rockers, and she'd sort of been drifting off to sleep, and she had these beautiful images of when she was young, when he used to come and peck her. And she had these beautiful images that even in their old age, this could still happen. So she thought, in the light of the dream that she'd been having, that she'd talked to Grandpa, and so she said, "Honey, do you remember when we first started dating? And you used to just casually reach over and take my hand." And Grandpa said yes. So he reached out and casually took her hand, taking the lead from her suggestion. With a wry little smile, Grandma thought, "Oh, this is good." She said, "Did you remember, honey, that when we were engaged, you'd sometimes lean over and suddenly kiss me on the cheek?" Grandpa smiled sweetly. He reached over and kissed her on the now very wrinkled cheek, and it felt very different, but never mind, the dream was nice. Then Grandma decided to push it a little further, seeing as she'd had this dream, and she said, "Do you remember that, honey, sometimes when we first got married, you used to nibble me on my ear?" Grandpa sat there thinking, "Oh man, I'll blow this." So he gets up out of his chair and he's walking away, and she said, Where do you think you're going? He says, to get my teeth, of course. You see, her perception, her dream, was very real. It was grounded in very real experience. But the outworking of it can be very different. And I want to encourage you to pursue understanding your dreams, to be active in doing so. And if you can't do it on your own, and most of us can't, then you need to work with some people that are really going to be in connection with God and know the dreams. You know, God says very clearly in His Bible that in the latter days, there'll be lots of people who have lots of visions and dreams. There'll be people who, He says, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Dreams often come, as was quoted in the scripture earlier, with many cares. And sometimes we ignore the dream to our peril. We ignore the dream to our peril. And so I want to suggest, as you go out today, I'm going to pray a prayer. And the prayer is going to ask and invite God to unlock things for you in a way that you've never experienced before. The dreams I had when I was younger are starting to come true. I'm pretty excited about life right now because I understand things about myself I never understood when I was younger, all because some people sat down and bothered to take time to help me to work through what I was dreaming. So let's talk to God about it. He's interested to hear from us this time. Father God, we would come to you and we would ask very seriously that you would help us to unlock the whole spiritual side of our beings, to be able to communicate with you and understand what you're saying to us. For some of us, we've messed up our lives because we haven't followed through on the things that you were trying to say. And we would simply want to say to you today, Lord, that we'd invite you to come. And Lord, for some of us here, that's a little bit of we have a little bit of apprehension because we know we're not being really right with you. But we would like to say to you today that we would like your forgiveness and we would like to give you a chance to be able to speak to us and where you've been speaking for us to be able to understand, so that we might be able to live the lives of opportunity and a real positive position that you constantly speak about in your Bible. So we ask you that you would help us and guide us. And we want to promise to you today that we won't give up on really trying to understand what you might be saying and to understand what we might be dreaming. In Jesus' name. And all the people said, hey, that's a bit of a good journey. I loved working with you on it. The team were fantastic here this morning. So let's show great appreciation to them. Yeah. Have you any questions about dreams?